Hi guys, this is Hero, and today I'm going to be discussing the retrograde motions of Venus and Mercury. Okay, so this is not just a regular Mercury retrograde. There's actually a Venus aspect involved in this also, and this is pretty big. Why? Because Mercury goes retrograde about 3 to 4 times a year for like 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, so it goes retrograde pretty often. Venus only goes retrograde once every year and a half for about a month or a little bit over a month, maximum a month and a half. Okay, so it's a little bit more profound when the Venus goes retrograde, and especially because Venus and Mercury, they're always close to each other. So when they go retrograde, there's usually an overlap on when they go retrograde. Okay, so for example, in this transit, the retrograde overlap is about 2 weeks. Okay, so I'll just start off with the dates first off. So Venus, it goes retrograde in Capricorn about December 19th, okay? And it backs up, and I think at about December 29th or 30th, it goes into Sagittarius. And then at like somewhere around January 27th, it starts moving forward again, okay? And Mercury in Capricorn also in January 14th, it starts backing up into Capricorn. It never makes it to Sagittarius again. And like beginning of February, I want to say like around February 3rd, it starts going forward in Capricorn. Okay, so this is literally what happens. So let's just say this is Aquarius and this is Scorpio, right? So the zodiac is progressing like this. So Venus is kind of going to go into Capricorn and then go back to Sagittarius. And while it goes back to Sagittarius, Mercury is still moving forward. Actually, Venus goes from Capricorn to Sagittarius, like around the same time. I think it's within 24 hours, a Mercury going from Sagittarius to Capricorn, okay? So both planets are kind of shifting energies as well as crossing over each other, okay? And this Venus is retrograde and Mercury's kind of preparing to get retrograde, okay? So it's not moving quite as fast. There's another thing I want to point out to you before I go dive deeper into this. Venus especially, because it does not go retrograde that long, it moves slow before and after going retrograde. Okay? Even also the beginning and the end of the retrograde. It's pretty slow moving. Even the retrograde itself, it's pretty slow. Okay? Like even right now, Venus doesn't go retrograde till about the 19th. You'll still feel the effects right now, over 10 days before, of it slowing down. Okay, and I'm not sure if it actually went into Capricorn yet. If it did, it just did. But when it goes into Capricorn conjunct Saturn, especially since it's going to be slowing down even more and more and more throughout the next 10 days, and especially because Capricorn has those Saturn energies and Saturn's in there also, you'll start feeling it pretty quickly on the Venus stationary energies. Okay, stationary energies is very, very important. It's almost just as important, if not arguably even more important than retrograde energies. Okay, so now here's the question. What does it actually mean when a planet goes retrograde or when a planet goes stationary? Okay, I want you to imagine this. Don't just think of this as calculations. You want to think of these planets as like energetic entities in themselves, which is something I know you all heard me say before. You know those things in your life where you just suddenly am like, man, I really feel like I should do this. Let's just say you stopped eating meat, right? Like you really feel like, man, I should really stop eating meat. Or let's just say you feel like working out, okay? You're like, man, I really should get in better shape or just improve my diet, okay? The stationary energies, when the planet starts slowing down, that's basically your awareness kind of growing, like, man, I should really start doing this. And when it goes retrograde, that's like you finally am like, all right, man, I'm doing this, right? Whether it's like, all right, like you join the gym, you start a new diet, you do whatever, you start meditating, chanting mantras, whatever. When you actually start doing the thing, that's kind of the retrograde. But like that realization, like, man, I should like that pondering, daunting thought of like, man, like keep like man, like this, I really need to start doing this. It's not even like a want anymore. Like I almost have to do it or else I'm gonna go insane. That's the stationary energies. Okay, I'd encourage you guys. Most like if you check your horoscope, most softwares will tell you if it's retrograde, but most won't tell you if it's stationary. I'd strongly encourage you to check if the planet's stationary, because that's something very, very important that it might not show. Like I said, that planet has a high level of awareness if it's stationary, okay? I'll get into how to check that in another video. But so the point is, when in Venus, like I said, it's moving slow, a lot, very slow before and after the retrograde for a little while, and the actual retrograde is slow itself, okay? So what does this mean? I'm gonna kind of use the example of like working out, right? So what this means is like for a long time before, and you guys will notice this too. Now, when that awareness kicks in, it is all based off of your own awareness in your own chart or something. But you'll feel it soon, especially because it's crossing into Capricorn. In Capricorn, it's with Saturn, and that Saturn slow energies is kind of gonna start to rub off on it now, okay? And when the actual Venus retrograde starts, Venus is about 15 degrees away from Saturn in its own sign. I mean, in Saturn's own sign. So it's like those energies will be prominent. So slowly until December 19th. And like I said, you could have already been noticing this. You'll notice the Venus stationary energies taking place, right? So what does this mean, right? So regardless of what houses Venus rules in your chart, or what house Venus sits in your chart, it's always going to rule Taurus and Libra, okay? That is never going to change, and that's the primary of who Venus is, okay? Venus rules 2 houses in your chart. But why does it rule those 2 houses? It's because its energies are occupying those houses, okay? Not the other way around. So the energies are the primary of who Venus is. The houses is just the external, superficial, I don't want to say superficial because houses are also very important, but the external kind of way those energies are getting represented in your life, okay? And there's a similar kind of mindset to where it sits. Where it sits, it's kind of like its results are kind of flowing through that house, okay? I'll move into this in another video. But if you want to get into the houses level, you could look at your own chart. That's fine. I'm going to make another video on this at a later time. I have too much backlog of videos I need to make. But Venus, so like I said, Venus rules Taurus and Libra. So think as if you are Venus, okay? You have Taurus and Libra. You prefer Libra, but also Taurus is also a big part of you. Pretend like you're Venus, right? Now, pretend like you're going stationary. So when it comes to stuff related to Taurus and Libra, you are like, man, like your awareness is really kicking into high gear, okay? It's slowing down a lot. It's like, should I really be doing this, blah, blah, blah. Now, when Venus goes the other way, it's going to start making those changes. But like I said, Venus moves very slow in retrograde, right? And why? Venus represents, it rules the only 2 house energies, 2 and 7, that are earth and air like signs that are not upachas, right? So what does this mean? Like all the earth and air in the zodiac are 2, 3, 6, 10. I mean, 6, 7, 10, and 11. Okay, those are the 6 earth and air signs in the zodiac. The upachas are 3, 6, 10, and 11, which are ruled by Mercury and Saturn. I kind of discussed this in my upacha houses video. Venus is the only one that rules an earth or an air that is it's an earth or an air that's not an upacha, right? So it retrogrades very, very slowly. Why? Because there's no real need to make huge sudden changes in the areas of life Venus represents, right? Venus represents kind of it doesn't represent anything you really need to do. Okay, that to an extent, that's what Venus represents, right? But nonetheless, this This transit is very important, right? So think your Venus. You're stationary. You're kind of being more and more aware. And the way I make these videos, I try not to spoon feed you the answer, okay? I'm trying to kind of get you to think about this yourself so that if there's something that I don't make a video on or something in your chart that you have questions about, your intuition will hopefully get more and more and more so that the answers will just start speaking to you, just like they kind of come to me a little bit, okay? There's a quote where it's like, if you catch a fish for a man, he eats for a day. If you teach a man how to fish, he eats for a lifetime, okay? I'm trying to teach you how to interpret this kind of stuff, okay? And that all starts with going within, okay? Just looking at astrology from a very spiritual standpoint, not a materialistic standpoint like most people try to do, okay? That's why I say focus more on sign energies rather than house placements. But I'll get into that in another video. So Venus, like, okay, so I think I took care of Venus isolated right now, right? When it goes stationary, you're kind of becoming aware of the energies of Venus, right? So it could be stuff related to Taurus, like foods you should be eating, etc. Should be related to people in your life, like, you know, you're becoming more aware of the dynamics you should have with other people and what dynamics you shouldn't have with certain people. And then when it goes retrograde, you'll start making those changes. Like I said, Venus, it doesn't move very quickly when it retrogrades, right? So these changes most likely won't be sudden. And you also have to look at your dashas, okay? If you're running a Venus, you just started a Venus Antardasha last week, this thing is going to be very important for you, right? Because like you're running your Venus Antardasha and Venus Pratyantardasha. So the energies of Venus are already enhanced in your chart. Now this thing happens and it's like, whoa. But so when it goes retrograde, like I said, it's usually not as sudden, right? Because Venus represents the things that you just kind of want, not necessarily the things you need. But Venus doesn't go retrograde that often, and when it comes to our wants, our ego has a hard time kind of making those changes. So this energy should be kind of profound, right? So that's Venus. And then when it starts again, going forward, it's also moving very slow. So after it kind of made those changes, it needs some time to kind of recalibrate and be aware, right? So because it's not going to go retrograde for a long time, so it has to make sure that its changes that it makes, it's going to be that the changes that it made, we need to kind of solidify that knowledge and wisdom going forward for the next year and a half until Venus goes retrograde again, right? Now I'm going to move on to the Mercury quickly, and then I'm going to combine the two, okay, and how it's playing out in this. Now Mercury rules 3 and 6, okay, which are more houses or involving self-efforts like you need to do, okay, Virgo and Gemini, okay. That now what do these houses mean? So like Gemini kind of revolves around communication, and Virgo kind of revolves around your wants versus needs. That's why whenever Mercury goes retrograde, it's kind of advised not to say anything you might regret, or kind of do anything kind of analysis of your wants and needs that you don't do anything that you wouldn't have really done during this retrograde, or try to push it off till after, when these energies are more like flowing forward. Now, so Mercury, it's a little bit different because it doesn't slow down, because it's going retrograde all the time. It doesn't quite slow down as much as Venus does before retrograde, right? It slows down, but not as much. And same thing after it goes retrograde, it's slow getting back to normal, but it's not as slow, right? The stationary periods are not as long. And the actual retrograde itself, like it's moving a little bit more faster, right? Mercury is naturally a more fast planet. Like it needs to 3 and 6, Gemini and Virgo, they're very, very keen houses, okay? I was going to mention something, but it's going to take too long. Now, so when Mercury kind of revolves, let's just say your self-efforts in your rational process, right? So I think I kind of explained when it doesn't go stationary as long, but when it does go stationary, it's like, all right, maybe I should start doing this. And then it's the same kind of process. It's just a little bit more extreme. There's not as much stationary period, so not as much awareness, but the retrograde is moving faster. So it's like you could be a little bit more harsh to kind kind of jump in and make the things that happen. Now, why is it doing this? It's because more likely than not, you could say the universe, God, Bhagwan, the higher consciousness, it has a plan for us that we may not necessarily envision, okay? This is the way I look at it. So like whatever happens during the Mercury retrograde, it's more likely putting us on a more divine path, in my opinion, okay? You can look at it however you want. But that's why the stationary periods are a little bit less and the retrograde period is a little bit quicker because it's like, all right, man, we need to get the karmic stuff going, okay? We don't have time to, move super slow like it is with Venus, okay? Now, I think I did an okay job or a decent job describing the two isolated, but now I kind of want to combine them. So, like I said, the Venus, it's stationary right now. I mean, not stationary, but it's moving very, very slow. You're going to feel the effects of that stationary Venus if you truly resonated with what I said, especially after it passes into Capricorn, okay? Now, when it goes into Capricorn, it's going to back up for about 10 days. In that 10 days, Mercury's going to start moving in. Okay, and at about the 30th or 29th or something, they're both going to cross each other. Now, what that means is like, I would say like 5 to 7 days before and 5 to 7 days after, about this time, their energies are going to, how should I say this? Their energies are going to affect each other, right? That's what I was meaning to say. So, but Venus is the only one retrograde. Mercury is still moving forward. It's kind of almost going to start slowing down, but not quite yet. So let's just kind of assume that this is just a regular moving forward Mercury, right? And the Venus is backing up. Well, the Venus, it's going from Capricorn to Sagittarius, while Mercury, first of all, is going from Sagittarius to Capricorn. So the Venus going from Capricorn to Sagittarius, it's more going from more a disciplined mindset to a more higher value mindset, right? So what does this mean? When it comes to stuff related to Venus, when that sign shift happens, it's more going to be like, okay, let me let loose on some tight rules that I've been applying to myself. And let me kind of, I wouldn't say do what I feel is right, because that's more Scorpio, but let me just do let me just do what I feel. You could say that. That's the best way I can kind of word it right now in this video right off the top of my head. Yeah, let me kind of more do what I feel is right? And that's why people say when a planet goes retrograde, it almost kind of behaves like it's in the sign before, okay? It's because of that. It's kind of moving towards the direction of the sign before. It's not it actually behaves like the sign before, okay? You have to understand the full picture. But this time, because it's actually moving into the sign before, it's really enhancing those energies, right? So when it comes to Venus, you'll feel like, man, why am I so disciplined? As far as what I really think I need to do, let me just go off of what I feel from a higher consciousness level is right. That's what I meant to say, okay? Well, at a higher consciousness level, what I feel is right, okay? Now, Mercury's kind of doing the opposite. It kind of went through Sagittarius, right? So it's like, okay, yeah, like Sagittarius is kind of the sign across from Gemini, right? So it likes Gemini. It kind of likes doing itself efforts. Sagittarius is kind of more like using like learning from your higher consciousness and others, right? So it's like, okay, yeah, I kind of learned what I had to do. Now I have to be a little bit more disciplined, okay? So, but they're crossing over each other, right? So what does this mean? So the Mercury, when it's going from Sagittarius to Capricorn, it's like, okay, I just learned a lot. Now I have to, and you kind of have to have a good sense of what the Mercury, like how it will behave like in Sagittarius and Capricorn. Okay, this is kind of all stuff you guys have to do this level of homework yourself. Okay, everybody can't spoon feed you anything. Even if someone has like a video or article on this stuff, like it won't truly sit well with you until you intuitively connect with how Mercury really is in Sagittarius and Capricorn. Okay, now, so let me talk to you first about how the Venus affects the Mercury, right? So the Mercury is, like I said, it's on its way to become more disciplined, and here comes this Venus that's trying to, you could say when a planet goes retrograde, because Rahu and Ketu are retrograde, right? You could say that Venus is almost trying to pay off, do a lot of things that it karmically should have done a long time ago. Okay, you could say that. So the Mercury is kind of trying to become more disciplined. It's on its way to become more disciplined, and this Venus comes and it's trying to use its higher knowledge to oh, and by the way, Venus is going to Sagittarius, which represents higher knowledge, kind of that you also learn from others. So the Venus could learn a lot from others, right? That's just a point I want to make. It could. Now, here comes this Mercury that's trying to become disciplined, and this Venus that's on its way to learn more, and kind of pay off its karmas that way, right? So it's kind of actually, it's kind of hard to isolate how Venus impacts Mercury and how Mercury impacts Venus. They kind of just intuitively, you kind of just have to sense how they cross over each other. But what could happen is actually the Venus affecting Mercury more, right? Because it has the more stronger energy, so the stationary energy. So it's going to try to use, Venus is going to try to use Mercury to achieve its agenda. Okay, so what does this mean? So it's like, whatever pending karmas you have related to Venus, whatever you've kind of become aware of in this time, when it goes retrograde, you'll notice a shift. When Venus goes retrograde, you'll notice a shift about actual. Right now, you're just becoming more aware of certain things, right? Because Venus is slowing down. When the Venus goes retrograde, you're gonna start doing them. When Venus starts going over Mercury, you'll notice it's going to start using Mercury more to achieve Venus's agenda. Now, don't think that's the Venus itself. That's Venus using the Mercury, okay? I hope that makes sense. So it's going to use Mercury. It's going to use its kind of capabilities of communication and analyzing wants versus needs to achieve the agenda of the Venus being retrograde. Okay, this is kind of something you have to, there's only so much I can speak about this because the brain can only understand so much. A lot of this is understood intuitively, right? But Mercury here is not retrograde. Okay, so Mercury is still kind of functioning normal. Keep that in mind. Okay, so that's kind of how this crossover is. Okay, now when Mercury goes retrograde on the 14th, Venus is still retrograde for 2 more weeks. Now it's like they're not conjunct or anything, but the Venus is still retrograde, right? So it's still trying to pay off its karmas related to like related to Taurus and Libra, and based off of the awareness again when it was stationary. And now the Mercury is, it's like, man, I need to start paying off my own, like I have some pending karmas to get going based off of Gemini and Virgo energies, right? Which is like analyzing my wants versus needs and communication. That's why actually a lot of negative stuff happens when Mercury goes retrograde, because it's like trying to karmically show you exactly what your wants versus needs are, right? Like if you make some very dumb decision, it's like, did you really need to do that? Okay, and it's trying to teach you in the long run. Most people don't talk about this, but that's what it's trying to do. Okay, so, but when they're both retrograde, now actually the Venus is in Sagittarius, and it's the sign before Sagittarius is Scorpio, but it's kind of far away from Scorpio, so it's like it's not quite picking up on those energies. But now it's like, instead of that Venus being like, okay, I'm going from more discipline to just learning what I need to learn, it's like, okay, I'm going from what I'm learning what I need to learn to developing that true intuition. And that Mercury is in the Venus's old spot where it's like I'm disciplined, but now I feel like I still need to learn some more stuff related to Gemini and Virgo, right? So now it's like all four of these energies, Taurus, Libra, and Gemini and Virgo, are all like, that's a big chunk of your chart, okay? I break all the 12 signs up into groups of 4, okay? Each fire to water sign, so that's Aries to Cancer, Leo to Scorpio, and Sagittarius to Pisces. Out of the first 2, that's literally the 2 middle blocks of those 2. And if you need a little bit more explanation on what the signs exactly represent, you can watch my all astrology signs made simple video. But that's all 4 of those energies going backward for those 2 weeks, right? So we have Taurus and we have Libra, which kind of represents your luxuries and relations with persons or people. And you have Gemini, which kind of represents communications. And you have Virgo, which represents wants versus needs. So find out the stuff in your life that has all of these in common, okay? I can tell you one right now. That is the foods you need to eat and the people you need to talk to. Now, you could say that that's like, you could say those are basically just Venus, but it's like Venus with the Mercury flavors as well. Like they're not separate. They all the planets kind of work together to provide the energies for this human birth experience, okay? And this is kind of where it gets tough explaining this, like I said, from a mental level. But when Mercury retrograde happens, it's like your rational intelligence is affected. When the Venus goes retrograde, like I said, you're very highly more sensitive and aware of like the stuff you're doing related to your wants in life. And Mercury represents analyzing your wants versus needs. So it's like they both have wants in common, but Mercury also is analysis and Venus is also enjoyment. But they both have wants in common, especially when it comes to people, because Mercury rules Gemini, which is communication and stuff like that. And Venus, Mutrikon, is Taurus. So it's like there's a highly sensitive overlap when it comes to your basically your overall efforts with people. Okay, so you'll notice those 2 weeks, it's like any toxic relations or any old relations where like you may have your energies may have been misguided, they'll all come to life. Okay, that's kind of what I meant to say here. And then afterwards, Mercury's still retrograde a little bit, but Venus is it starts going stationary. Mercury is also kind of slowing down. So basically, it's just like when it comes to that, you're just kind of more aware and kind of seeing, okay, the energies I felt during that time, the stuff I may or may not have done. Kind of the awareness goes into high gear on, your reflection related to all that. And then afterwards, they'll both go forward, and that's that. So this was definitely a little longer video than I thought, but if you enjoyed the video, also just kind of me, I hope you enjoyed the video, just kind of me speaking about not only this transit, but also me describing like the main takeaway I wanted you to get is also me describing more, especially Venus, because it goes retrograde less and I make less videos about it. Just me describing Venus in a way that you might not have thought of before, and me describing stationary and retrograde energies in a way that I may have not described before. That way, when this happens again, you can kind of use that true knowledge that you hopefully might have gained in this video, or the knowledge you might have developed from your intuition and higher consciousness getting raised from this video, so that next time retrograde happens, you'll kind of have a little deeper intuitive sense of what that transit could feel like for you. So hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any comments or questions, as usual, let me know. And until next time, thank you guys so much.